In the chaos of daily life, silence often feels like the easiest choice. It keeps the peace, avoids confrontation, and lets us move on. But what if silence isn't just a passive choice? What if it's an action that carries consequences for others, for ourselves, and for the world we share? Today, I want to share with you 5 moments from my own life where speaking up wasn't just the right thing to do, it was the only thing to do. Before we dive in, take a moment to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. Together, we can explore more ways to live with courage, wisdom, and purpose. Your support helps this community grow and brings these ideas to more people who need them. Let's dive into the wisdom of Stoic philosophy and discover how to act with courage and clarity in the moments that truly matter. Knowledge is a gift meant to be shared. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." I learned this lesson firsthand. A few years ago, a close friend of mine was drowning in debt. I could see the stress eating away at them, but I hesitated to share my knowledge about budgeting, worried I might come off as intrusive or judgmental. Finally, I decided to open up about my own struggles with finances and how I overcame them. That conversation was a turning point for them. They created a plan, regained control over their finances, and thanked me for my honesty. It also deepened our friendship. Sharing your knowledge isn't about showing off, it's about lifting others up. It's a reminder that we're all connected, and our skills are most valuable when they're used to serve. Your expertise is a tool for building community and creating positive change. When you share what you know, you inspire others to do the same, creating a ripple effect of learning and growth. Of course, sharing knowledge requires sensitivity and timing. Not everyone is ready to receive advice, and sometimes unsolicited help can feel overwhelming or unwelcome. That's why it's important to approach these moments with empathy. Listen first, understand the other person's perspective, and offer your insights as a suggestion rather than a directive. It's not about imposing your solutions, but providing tools that others can adapt to their own circumstances. Another key aspect of sharing knowledge is humility. No one knows everything, and being willing to admit what you don't know can make your contributions even more valuable. When you position yourself as a fellow learner, rather than an all-knowing expert, you create a space where mutual growth can flourish. This openness also invites others to share their own wisdom, enriching the exchange and fostering a collaborative environment. Take, for example, the workplace. When team members freely share their expertise, the entire group benefits. A colleague's insight can spark new ideas, solve lingering problems, or even prevent costly mistakes. Beyond the practical benefits, this culture of sharing builds trust and camaraderie, making the workplace not just more productive, but also more fulfilling. This principle isn't limited to professional settings. It applies to families, friendships, and community groups as well. Imagine a neighborhood where residents pool their skills and knowledge, whether it's organizing events, starting a community garden, or mentoring young people. The collective impact of shared wisdom can transform ordinary spaces into thriving, supportive environments. Sharing knowledge also leaves a legacy. When you teach someone a skill or impart a valuable lesson, you're contributing to a chain of learning that can extend far beyond your immediate reach. The person you help today might pass on what they've learned to someone else tomorrow, creating a lasting impact that you may never fully witness, but can take pride in knowing you've set in motion. So the next time you hesitate to share what you know, remember that your knowledge has the power to uplift, connect, and inspire. Whether it's a small piece of advice, a life lesson, or a professional skill, offering what you've learned can be a profound act of generosity. In giving freely, you not only help others, but also enrich your own life in ways you might not anticipate. Injustice thrives in silence. Epictetus teaches us, it is not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters. Staying silent when injustice occurs is choosing to let harm continue unchecked. I remember one such moment vividly. During my university years, a classmate named Anika was unfairly accused of cheating during a group project. Everyone in the room knew she was innocent, but no one spoke up. I sat there, torn between fear and my conscience. I was scared of standing out and risking my reputation, but watching her struggle to defend herself made me realize that staying silent wasn't an option. Gathering my courage, I spoke up and explained the facts to the professor. It wasn't easy, but the truth prevailed. Speaking up against injustice doesn't require shouting or confrontation. It requires calm conviction and the courage to stand on the side of what's right. When you speak against injustice, you don't just help the victim, you inspire others to find their own voice. Justice thrives when good people refuse to remain silent. Your voice can be the light that guides others toward doing what is right. Years later, I encountered another situation that tested my resolve. At my first job, a colleague named Ravi was being unfairly blamed for a project delay. The real cause was a miscommunication from upper management, but Ravi, being a junior employee, became the scapegoat. The room fell silent as our manager criticized him. I could see the humiliation on his face, and it reminded me of Annika. This time, I didn't hesitate. I calmly pointed out the miscommunication and explained how it had impacted the timeline. My heart raced as I spoke, but I stayed firm. The manager paused, reconsidered, and eventually acknowledged the oversight. Ravi gave me a grateful nod afterward, but the moment wasn't just about him. It was about setting a precedent in the workplace, that fairness and accountability mattered. These experiences taught me that speaking up isn't always about grand gestures or dramatic moments. Often it's about the quiet, steady insistence on truth and fairness. It's about recognizing that every voice, no matter how small, can create ripples of change. Even when fear grips you, even when the stakes feel high, choosing to act is what makes the difference. Injustice feeds on apathy, on the assumption that someone else will take responsibility. But what if everyone thinks that way? What if every voice remains silent? The harm continues, unchecked, and the cycle perpetuates. Breaking that cycle begins with individuals, ordinary people willing to stand up in the face of wrongs, no matter how minor or major they may seem. It's also important to remember that speaking up doesn't always mean immediate success. There will be times when your voice isn't heard, when the outcome doesn't change. But even then, you've planted a seed. You've shown others that silence isn't the only option. And sometimes that's enough to inspire the next person to take a stand. The world doesn't change overnight, but it does change when people refuse to accept injustice as inevitable. Every time we choose courage over fear, truth over silence, we contribute to a larger movement of fairness and compassion. So the next time you're faced with a moment of injustice, ask yourself, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? Boundaries define who we are and how we deserve to be treated. As Seneca said, nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart. I had to learn this the hard way. For years, I avoided conflict. One of my closest friends had a habit of canceling plans at the last minute. It made me feel unimportant, but I kept brushing it off, thinking I didn't want to make things awkward. Eventually, I couldn't ignore how it was affecting me. I decided to have an honest conversation with them, explaining how their actions made me feel. To my surprise, they hadn't realized the impact of their behavior. That talk strengthened our friendship, and we became more mindful of each other's time. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's an act of love for yourself and for those who care about you. Boundaries aren't walls. They're bridges to healthier relationships, built on mutual respect and understanding. Of course, setting boundaries isn't always easy. It can feel uncomfortable, especially if you're not used to advocating for your needs. Sometimes people may react negatively, viewing your boundaries as rejection or criticism. But remember, boundaries are not about pushing people away. They're about creating a space where you can thrive and connect authentically with others. I learned this again in my professional life. A colleague frequently delegated their tasks to me without asking if I had the bandwidth to take them on. At first, I complied because I didn't want to seem uncooperative, but over time, I felt overwhelmed and resentful. It wasn't until I respectfully communicated my limits that the dynamic shifted. They apologized and adjusted their approach, and I found myself less stressed and more productive. This experience taught me that boundaries can also foster respect and accountability in the workplace. Another vital lesson is that boundaries require consistency. It's not enough to set them once and hope they stick. You need to reinforce them through your actions and communication. This doesn't mean being rigid or inflexible. It's about staying true to yourself while remaining open to dialogue. Flexibility within boundaries allows relationships to grow while still honoring your core needs. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with ourselves. We often overextend, say yes when we should say no, and neglect our own well-being in the process. I've been guilty of this too, taking on too many commitments, ignoring my need for rest, and convincing myself I could handle it all. Over time, I realized that self-care isn't indulgence, it's a necessity. Learning to say no to others so I could say yes to myself was one of the most transformative lessons I've ever embraced. Ultimately, boundaries are a form of self-respect. They remind us that we are worthy of kindness, consideration, and care. They help us navigate relationships with clarity and intention, ensuring that we give and receive in ways that feel balanced and fulfilling. When we honor our boundaries, we teach others to honor them too. And in doing so, we create a foundation for deeper, more meaningful connections. Mistakes, when ignored, become bigger problems. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, what stands in the way becomes the way. I learned this through a critical moment early in my career. I was working on a team project and noticed a colleague had made a mistake in the data. At first, I hesitated to bring it up, worried it might come across as criticism or damage our working relationship, but I knew the error could cause bigger problems if left uncorrected. Finally, I approached them privately and framed it as teamwork rather than fault-finding. They appreciated my input, and together we fixed the issue. That decision prevented a costly error and built trust between us. Correcting mistakes is an act of accountability. When you address errors, you uphold integrity and strengthen the foundation of trust and excellence. Mistakes are opportunities for growth when approached with honesty and care. Mistakes also teach us resilience and adaptability. When we confront them head-on, we build the mental muscle needed to navigate challenges in the future. In my experience, the act of addressing that error not only resolved the immediate issue, but also created a ripple effect. It encouraged others on the team to be more open about their own mistakes and proactive in seeking solutions. Over time, this fostered a culture of transparency and collaboration. Leaders, too, play a crucial role in how mistakes are perceived and handled. A leader who views errors as learning opportunities rather than failures creates an environment where innovation can thrive. When people feel safe admitting their missteps, they are more likely to take calculated risks, think creatively, and push boundaries without fear of punishment. This approach doesn't just benefit individuals. It elevates the entire organization. On a personal level, mistakes have a way of humbling us. They remind us that perfection is unattainable, and that growth often comes from discomfort. The key is to approach errors with curiosity rather than judgment. Ask yourself, what went wrong? Why did it happen? What can I do differently next time? By reframing mistakes as valuable lessons, you shift your mindset from one of self-criticism to one of self-improvement. It's also important to recognize the value of empathy when addressing mistakes made by others. Just as I approach my colleague with care, offering constructive feedback rather than blame, we should extend the same courtesy in all interactions. Empathy not only strengthens relationships, but also ensures that the focus remains on finding solutions rather than assigning fault. In the grand scheme of things, mistakes are inevitable. What defines us is not the errors we make, but how we respond to them. Whether in our personal lives or professional endeavors, embracing mistakes as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks can lead to profound growth and deeper connections with those around us. As Marcus Aurelius suggested, obstacles can guide us toward the path we're meant to take. When we face mistakes with courage, accountability, and empathy, they transform from barriers into bridges that lead to stronger relationships, greater achievements, and a more resilient version of ourselves. Honesty is often avoided in the name of keeping the peace. But peace built on silence isn't peace, it's a fragile illusion. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, if it is not true, do not say it. If it is not right, do not do it. I faced this in a personal moment. A close friend once made a joke at my expense during a gathering. It stung more than they realized, but I stayed silent, not wanting to ruin the mood. Later, I couldn't shake the discomfort, so I decided to talk to them privately. I explained how their words had affected me, and to my relief, they sincerely apologized. That moment deepened our bond because we addressed the issue with honesty and respect. Honesty isn't about confrontation, it's about connection. Speaking up doesn't mean accusing or blaming. It means valuing the relationship enough to address what's wrong and work toward what's right. Honesty builds trust and strengthens the bonds that matter most. In a world where misunderstandings and unspoken grievances can quietly erode even the strongest relationships, honesty serves as a bridge to clarity and mutual understanding. It's not always easy to be honest, especially when the fear of conflict looms large. However, avoiding the truth for the sake of temporary harmony often leads to deeper fractures in the long run. Consider how often we suppress our feelings to keep the peace. Perhaps a colleague takes credit for your idea, a family member makes an insensitive remark, or a partner overlooks something important to you. In these moments, silence might feel like the safer option, but it's a disservice to both yourself and the relationship. By staying quiet, you deny the other person an opportunity to understand your perspective and grow from it. Honesty, when approached with care and empathy, doesn't have to be confrontational. It's about creating a space where both parties feel heard and valued. For example, instead of saying, "You always ignore my feelings," you could express, "When this happened, I felt hurt because my feelings matter to me." This shifts the conversation from blame to understanding, making it easier for the other person to respond with openness rather than defensiveness. Moreover, honesty is a practice that extends beyond our interactions with others. It's also about being truthful with ourselves. Are we avoiding difficult conversations because we fear rejection or discomfort? Are we compromising our values to gain approval or avoid conflict? Self-honesty requires courage, but it's the foundation of personal growth. When we're honest with ourselves, we're better equipped to be honest with others. It's important to remember that honesty doesn't guarantee an immediate resolution or a perfect outcome. Some truths may be hard to hear, and not everyone will respond as we hope. But even when honesty feels risky, it's a risk worth taking. It shows that we care enough to invest in the relationship, even when it's uncomfortable. Ultimately, honesty is a gift we give to ourselves and those we care about. It fosters trust, deepens connections, and paves the way for authentic relationships. While it may not always be easy, the rewards of living and communicating with honesty far outweigh the temporary discomfort it may bring. Silence can often be a refuge, a moment to reflect and gather strength, but it should never become a shield for complacency. There are moments in life that demand we step forward, speak up, and take action. When faced with injustice, dishonesty, or the crossing of personal boundaries, your voice becomes a powerful tool for change. Similarly, when hidden talents and expertise lie dormant, the world misses out on the unique contributions only you can provide. These moments call for courage, and as Stoicism teaches us, courage is not the absence of fear, but the determination to act rightly despite it. Every voice matters, including yours. When used with intention, your words can challenge the status quo, inspire others, and build bridges between divided perspectives. Imagine a world where courage and compassion are not just ideals, but everyday practices. This is the world we can create when we choose to use our voices wisely. As you move forward, remember that action begins with awareness. Pay attention to the injustices around you, the opportunities to uplift others, and the moments where silence might inadvertently signal acceptance. Then, with care and purpose, let your voice be heard. Whether it's through a conversation, a written message, or a simple act of kindness, your courage can ripple outward in ways you may never fully see, but will undoubtedly feel. Thank you for being part of this journey, a journey of growth, understanding, and action. Together, let's continue to foster a world where courage is celebrated and compassion is the foundation of all our interactions. Until next time, stay brave, stay kind, and always remember the power of your voice. See you in the next video.